What's up? Welcome to Tackett's House of Horsepower. It's me, Steve Tackett, and let's put in a Dakota Digital dash today. Why not? So, the wife and I have been hanging out at car shows and cruising around, meeting people, saying hello, and that's awesome. And I love talking cars with people and meeting random strangers. But it's time to get back to work. So, let me show you where we're at. This up here pretty much all looks the same, except for maybe you haven't noticed this. My dual throttle return springs. That's a requirement for racing on racetracks. You need dual throttle return springs. So we got that on there. Other than that, pretty much haven't touched this up here. Now, the dash. The dash and wiring is still kind of just hanging out here. I've collected some parts though. I've been collecting some parts. I got a I did it steering column right there. I also have a new gauge cluster guy with the matching deal for the glove box. I have a Dakota Digital dash. This is the HDX version. This is the real nice one. I'll show it to you in a little bit. The rest of this stuff is just kind of parts coming in slowly but surely. Battery cutoffs. I gotta mount the battery in the trunk. I got a shifter. I got an intake manifold for Oki. Yeah, lots of parts, but here's the thing. They keep coming in kind of at a trickle. You know, I order 20 things and I only get like 3 or 4 at a time. So it's being difficult to get anything done. So I guess let's go ahead and assemble this Dakota Digital dash. Let's go ahead and unbox it and see what we got. We got some destruction manuals, some electrical cabling, some more electrical cabling and fittings. That guy there is your little computer brain. There it is. Let's take a look at this. Hold on, let me get something sharp. Okay, here's what we're looking at. This being the HDX version, this is the expensive one. It has the digital readouts in the middle and on the side, so you get a lot more options. Selector buttons, and you can put a mile an hour here and all kinds of information. Different options you can put it on, settings you can put it on, you can change the colors, you can do all kinds of stuff with this one. This one is $1,500. Yes, ouch. But you can get the base model one, I think is like 800 and something. So, I mean, I went with this one because I figured if I'm gonna do it, I might as well do it right, get a nice one, especially if I'm gonna keep this car. So if you're gonna do it right the first time. So here we go. Here's my original gauge cluster. It's not broken or anything, but it's in pretty poor condition. The paint and everything is just literally gone. And I could probably strip this and repaint it, but I don't know. It was just easier to order a new one. So I need to disassemble this. I'm gonna take the AC vent out of it and a few of these switches and stuff out of it. and start transferring parts over to the new one and see how far we can get with it. All right, I started with the wiper switch and I hit it with a little bit of WD-40, and you can't really see it when it's in there, but on the bottom side there's a little flathead screw, and that guy came off real easy. Look at that. Look how easy that spins. So I was pretty shocked. Usually these are rusty and you strip them out real bad and they're kind of difficult to get apart. But you pull that guy off, and then you got this ring in here. There's 2 holes. You can put a snap ring plier or something in there and spin that, and then this switch will drop out. Then come over here to the light switch, and on the bottom side of the light switch, you got this little button right here. Push that button, hold that button in, and you can pull this out, and it'll pull the rod out. And then you got another ring in here, spin that ring out, and then you get that switch out of there. So I'm gonna do that real quick. Sorry, yeah. So yeah, push that button, and then this rod comes out of there, whoop, pulls right out. There you go. Then you can spin those 2 nuts, and those 2 switches come out. Next thing I want to take out of here is the cigarette lighter. All right, so I got the wiper switch out. Came out pretty easy. So the way a wiper switch works is it's just a ground. That's all it is. It looks like this thing's in pretty good shape, so I want to test it out. I'm probably going to reuse it. I haven't ordered one because ordering parts right now is a pain. So I'm going to try and reuse it. So the way you got to test this is pretty simple. 1 wire comes into it. This is a single speed, your base model wiper switch. Most of your early GM cars are going to be like this. Like I said, it's just ground. So power is coming from the motor. So power goes into the motor, comes out of the motor, and then comes to the switch, and the switch grounds to the body of the switch. So it's on or off, but really it's ground. So the way you can test it is just grab a meter, put it on continuity, so you hear that beep. Now, in the off position, if I touch the body to ground like this, I just ground it, and I touch positive to here, I get nothing. I got nothing. So if I turn the switch on, it's going to be ground. Awesome. So this is working fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So I could save a few bucks by reusing it. That's awesome. So there's nothing wrong with the original switch. I'm going to put it in the new cluster. So that's good. We'll reuse that. All right, real quick, one thing we got to go over. Let's say you buy a Chevelle or a Nova or something, and it doesn't have a gauge cluster like this. So you buy one off of Classic Industries, OPG, wherever, internet. You buy one of these. All right, if you put this in and you just bolt it in the car, and you buy your cigarette lighter, and you buy all these things aftermarket, and you bolt them in, okay, there's going to be a problem. Nothing's going to work. None of it's going to work because it has to be grounded. So on the back of a stock gauge cluster, you have all these metal pieces. See this metal piece? It bolts to this bolt right here on the back of the cluster, and it goes to like your ignition switch, radio, cigarette lighter, and on the other side you have one just like it. This goes to your wipers, just like I showed you with the wiper. It has to be grounded or it's not going to work. So these metal pieces, they go on there. These are your grounds. They have to be there. Without it, your cigarette lighter, your radio, nothing's going to work. your like wiper switch and stuff like I just showed you. Without the ground, it's not grounded through the plastic. So you have to use these to ground it. So that's something else to think about. You got to take it all apart from an original cluster. Or I don't know if they make these aftermarket. I'm not sure, but these are a must. You have to have them, or else nothing will be grounded. So something to think about. All right, we got this guy stripped. Everything we need is off of it. So we're done with this guy. I got the 2 grounding pieces I need for both sides. It looks like my wiper switch is in good shape. I'm just gonna clean it up and use that. It looks like my cigarette lighter's in good shape too. So I'm gonna reuse this cigarette lighter. Also, my vent for the AC vent is there. I'm gonna reuse that. At least fill up the hole in the dash for now. Eventually the car will probably have vintage air or something like that. So I would like to use that eventually. The thing I want to show you real quick is on the back. This thing's in really good shape actually. This thing I bet that clock even works. But if you look real close, what I want to show you is all these where it says gray, light blue, dark blue, those are your turn signals, those are your instrument lights. Brown with a pink stripe, dark green with a pink stripe, dark blue with a pink, another gray. Those tell you where all the bulbs go. On the original wiring harness, if you look at the wires, you'll see those colors. The reason why that's important is when we wire up our Dakota Digital dash, I'm gonna clip those bulbs off. The blue one, that's gonna be my turn signal. That's gonna be the light blue one for the other turn signal. So if I cut that bulb off, I take that light blue wire and if this was the right turn signal and left turn signal, then I'm gonna use that as my input on the Dakota Digital dash. So, and you'll see later when we install the computer brain, we're gonna need all those wires for our inputs. All right, take a look at this. I mean, does that look pretty? Look at that. That thing looks good. Real high quality. I like Dakota Digital. Like I said, I've done about 4 or 5 of these and I really like them. So let's go ahead and start assembling this stuff. All right, I want to show you something. I just had an issue. I was gonna start bolting the Dakota Digital gauges to the gauge cluster. And I noticed that, and I had the same problem before, so I knew what to look for. But on the back side here, when I set the Dakota Digital gauges on here, the bolt holes didn't line up perfectly. They were off a little bit. And it's plastic, so you don't want to just ram the screws in there and just start going to town because you'll split this plastic real easy. So what I noticed was, and I had this same problem on a 64 El Camino LS swap, Dakota Digital Vintage Air, buddy of mine's car that I built. Anyway, you set the Dakota Digital gauge cluster on here, and I'll show you. And when I did that, I noticed that the bolt holes in the corner there, they didn't line up perfectly. And it needed to come up a little bit. Like the gauges needed to slide up a little bit, but they couldn't. And what it is the green plastic, see the green plastic turn signals? When they go into that hole right there, they go into these holes. I don't know, it's terrible trying to show you this. But there's like 4 little nubs. There's 4 little nubs around it. Well, I needed to slide it up slightly, and these 2 nubs right here were in the way. I couldn't get it to go up where I wanted the bolt holes to line up nice and perfect. So I had to take a little death wheel and grind the nub off the top of the 4 nubs for your turn signals. So I ground that off. and now the bolt holes line up much better. And I'm not in danger of splitting the plastic when I put the screws in it. So just take your time. Just take your time. Go slow. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't just lay it on here and start ramming screws in the hole, because you'll split this plastic, and then you're going to be really upset. So I don't know, something to look forward. If you're doing a 64, probably 65 is the same cluster. Just pay attention to where where the green plastic would fit. I just had to grind that off. So, and it's probably this aftermarket, I don't know, Taiwan plastic gauge cluster guy. But anyways, pay attention, go slow, take your time. Okay, next problem is the original bolts to the cluster are these little 1/4-inch drive screws. Well, the problem with them is if you stick them in here, you can't get the socket in there. See how the hole's kind of shrouded? You can't get a socket in there, so you can't tighten it down. And they're kind of short. You only get like 2 threads sticking out. See that? Is that even in focus? I don't know. But you only get a couple threads, and you can't get a socket on there to tighten it up even if you wanted to. So I'm gonna switch these out for Phillips head screws. Okay, there you go. I switched that out to a Phillips head screw and it fits perfectly. See that? Now, next problem. And I had this situation on my buddy's El Camino, so I'm gonna do the same thing I did on his car to this car. Now, with the Dakota Digital gauge cluster, you'll see here in the middle, it's plastic. Well, that's a problem because the original one was metal, right? The original one was metal. Now it's plastic. Well, why does that matter? Well, remember what we talked about earlier. These metal pieces, okay? Originally, this screwed to that ear on the original one, which was metal. And then it came over here and it screwed to this one here with this ear. And this piece is metal. And then you got one on your original dash, here. This corner is your ground, okay? So when you put a screw in here and you put it in the car, when you actually go to install this in the car, you're gonna put a screw in this corner. That is your ground, right? So this piece is gonna be grounded. Great. What about this piece over here now? This piece over here is now isolated and it's not connected through metal to the other side. So being that this is plastic, let's say your radio and your cigarette, your radio and your cigarette lighter now are not grounded through the gauge cluster over to the other side. And besides that, it's kind of not a very good ground to begin with because it's just going to touch the metal on the dash inside the car. Well, so what I did was, sorry if you're not getting all this in the one shot. What I did was over here on this hole, I took a piece of wire and I looped it through that hole and I soldered it. And then I ran it over here to this hole and I looped it through that hole and I soldered it. And then I left a long piece of wire that I could ground somewhere underneath the dash, you know, to metal, like a self-tapper to metal. So I'm gonna connect this with a wire. These two pieces here are gonna get connected by a wire. So that way I've got a good ground. I'm still gonna have the original ground here. There's gonna be a screw going through that, obviously. But I'm gonna run that wire off and I'm gonna ground that somewhere underneath the dash. So it's gonna be extra grounded. So anyway, it's starting to look like something. But anyway, so that's something to think about. When you put this together, it's not going to be grounded through the cluster anymore. It's plastic. So you need to run a wire somewhere or a better ground, I'm gonna add it, and so I'll show you that when I'm finished. But anyways, that's how it mounts. I got my pieces in there, so it's coming along, but it's something to think about. I'm gonna add a wire to it, so, and I'll show you. I didn't totally cheap out. I got a new cigarette lighter and a new light switch. I'm gonna reuse the wiper switch though, and the knobs probably, just because I try to order the stuff and it's like weeks and weeks out, so screw it. Basically, we're gonna put it back together, these pieces, just like the way it came apart. So let me pop these in real quick. All right, check it out. Light switch, wiper switch, new cigarette lighter. Don't forget this little guy. I popped this off of the old cluster. It's this little metal protector piece. It goes underneath the ignition switch, just in case you got a bunch of keys, key rings and key chains hanging off of there. This will protect the plastic, so it snaps on like that right there. That goes underneath the ignition switch. Got my vent in there, so it's looking pretty good. It's not bad. Look at Down and Dirty, getting all snazzy. Good enough for the girls we hang out with, let me tell you. Anyway, so yeah, I think this is good for now. So my gauge cluster is ready to go. Tomorrow, we will tackle wiring. But for now, I'm gonna clean up and eat some dinner. And I'll be back at it in the morning. All right, good morning. It is the next morning. And today we're gonna continue with the installation of this Dakota Digital dash. And we got some sensors to hook up. We gotta mount that little computer somewhere. Probably gonna find a spot for it, I don't know, back in there somewhere. Someplace safe and out of the way. And then we gotta run some wires. We gotta, like I was saying earlier in the video, we're gonna use these bulbs, you know, these colors, figure out which one is left turn signal, right turn signal, dash lights. One of them is gonna be for your high beam indicator. One of these is. So we'll figure out each one of those and snip them off, and then we'll run those wires over to that computer box. And I think we can run, it looks like there's this rubber bulkhead right here. We can run some more wires through that for like water temp and oil pressure, and we have a vehicle speed sensor that's going to go down to the tranny. So plenty to do, so let's get started. All right, computer is mounted, and I just use a couple of self tappers. And what I did was I put some, because I don't want to drill on this half of the cowl, because I don't want, let's say it does get rained on or car wash. Like, I'm gonna take this car through the car wash. But if it ever does get wet, I put silicone on these bolts and threaded them into the hole, so there's no chance water can get through. I don't want anything wet to get near this little computer. So that's where that's gonna go. Now, what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna strip the middle section of this harness, and I'm gonna pull all my indicator lights and everything. I'm gonna pull it all back, probably to about here. Pull all the indicator lights out and route those up and over. They gotta plug into all these little inputs right here. So I'm gonna start stripping this back. Okay, it's starting to look like a mess, but here, let's go over this a little bit. So originally, the dash had idiot lights. One was for water temp, one was for oil pressure, and one was for generator. So there's 3 light bulbs that have, let's see, I already cut one of them. 3 of these light bulbs have a black with a pink stripe, and then one will be blue, and one of them will be green, and one of them I believe is brown. This one right here, right there. Okay, all the black with pink wires, those are like 12 volts switched. So the way your idiot light works is when you turn the key on, you get 12 volts on this wire, this black with pink wire, all of them, all 3, 4 of them, whatever it is. The black with pink wires are powered, and then they go down and they go through the bulb, and then they go back through, this one happens to be brown, this would be generator. Your blue one, I believe, is water, and your green one is oil. So the way your sending unit works is you power it through the black with the pink, the power goes through the bulb, and then it goes back out the green wire in this case, or the blue wire, whichever, or the brown, whichever. And then it goes through the harness, and it goes out the bulkhead, and then out to the engine. And basically your sending unit is ground. So if you don't have oil pressure, for instance, the switch will be made. So when you make oil pressure, it opens the switch, which will turn off the bulb. In this case, your green one. Yeah, that's right. So let's say this is your oil pressure idiot light. It's powered as soon as you turn the key on through the pink wire. Then it goes through the bulb, out this green wire, out to your sending unit. And then when the engine starts, it opens the switch, which turns off the ground connection, and will turn off the bulb. Or in the case of water temperature, same thing. But you're powering up the pink one, it goes through the bulb, the filament of the bulb, then it comes out the blue one, goes through the harness, out the bulkhead, and out to your water temperature sending unit. Now that thing is basically when it gets to a certain temperature, the contact will close, creating the circuit, which will turn on the bulb. So basically, remember that your sending units are grounded. They are the ground that turns on the bulb, if that makes sense. But in our case, we don't need any of that. We don't need those 3 idiot lights. So we're gonna get rid of those. We're gonna delete those. I already deleted them on the bulkhead. You saw that in another video. Hopefully you saw that in another video. Your gray wire, that is your illumination for your dash lights. So when you turn on the lights, it's your back lights. So I need one of those gray wires to go to my computer to tell it when to turn on the actual dash lights. I also want to have 2 extra gray wires. One of them I'm going to run down into a small harness where I put my shifter. I'm going to put neutral safety switch, backup light switch, and I need one of the gray wires for the little light bulb in the indicator for your shift indication. So I'm going to keep one of the gray wires for that. I'm going to keep one of the gray wires, I believe, goes down here to light up your heater controls and AC controls. So I'm gonna keep a few of the gray ones. One of them's gonna go up there. The rest of it is let's think, left turn signal, right turn signal, high beams indicator, stuff like that. So I'm gonna find those wires, pull them out of here. I'm gonna retape this harness, and then I'm gonna have a little loom of wires coming out, and I'm gonna plug them into there. So that's where we're at. But that's basically how your original style idiot lights work. But yeah, we're getting rid of them. So that's what we're doing. All right, that's looking a lot better. I've deleted everything I'm not gonna keep. And then I pulled all these wires back here. I might even cut it back a little further, I don't know. But I'm gonna make a little pigtail coming off. And this is left and right turn signal. The dark blue and light blue is left and right turn signal. The green one is high beam indicator. And then, like I said, the gray ones, that's just your dash illumination light. So now I'm gonna tape all this up. I might cut this back a little bit more to here. Pull this back a little bit. And then I'm gonna retape it all. So it looks professional. No one will even know that it's a hacked up 1964 harness. All right, there it is. I got this little extra pigtail now coming up and over. I started landing all these wires. I forgot to mention the brown wire. That's the fuel take sending unit. So I got the fuel, high beam, left and right turn signal, and dimmer switch. So I got 3 extra gray wires for illumination. One's gonna go down to the shifter, one's gonna go probably eventually to the air conditioning heater, whatever, controller. And then I left a third one just in case for like extra gauges, or I was gonna put a gauge down here for air fuel ratio. So anyways, if I need to, I can cap those off, or I got 3 of them just in case. So now we're down to power and ground for the actual unit. And I got 3 sensors to wire up, water temp, oil, and vehicle speed. So I'll start running those. So I'm running all these sensors, and I kind of like this. Check this out. Down on the transmission, they give you this guy, and you can screw that on there, and that's how you get your pulse for vehicle speed. So that's pretty sweet, especially if you're not running like a computer controlled transmission to get your vehicle speed, you know, your pulse. You can just use one of these. So you can use this on an older style transmission, just like that. Screw that down, tighten it up, and then run your cable to that. It's pretty sweet. All right, let's see where we at. We got water temperature sending unit installed and wired. We attempted to put the oil pressure sending unit in, but this thing is so big, it hits the intake manifold. It doesn't clear the manifold right there where the cutout is. See that? It doesn't want to fit. So I'm gonna have to put a 90 in there, or extension or something, to get that up a little bit so it'll clear the intake manifold. But it's wired. The plug is back here, right here. So I just got to get an adapter or fitting or something to put that in. The transmission speedometer sending unit is screwed in. It's wired. All the wires come up, go this way. Everything goes through that rubber block right there. I got this guy here is going to be an O2 sensor. So I've got to run this over there underneath, and then I'm gonna put a bung in the exhaust pipe, and we got an O2 sensor. We're gonna put this guy in there because we have an air fuel gauge. That is a hand-me-down from the green Chevelle that I took out. I wasn't using it, so it's been sitting in a drawer all this time. Might as well use it. So now all the sending units, they come through, they wire in right here. Down here we have ground, and tachometer is the green one. accessory hot is the red one, and 12 volts constant is the yellow one. And I wired those off of my guy over here. So everything's done. All we got to do is plug in one cable to the top here and put the gauge cluster in. Now, this is the problem I'm having with getting parts in a timely fashion. I got a dash pad coming, and I want to put it on first because you won't be able to get to these holes. So the dash pad needs to go on first. Then the gauge cluster needs to go in. Then the steering column can go in. So basically, this is what I mean. Like, I'm coming to a standstill because I'm waiting on one part to get to this part, Like, so it's kind of killing me. So I don't know what's going on. It's on order. I don't know when it'll get here. But basically, it's done. The dash is done. The gauges are done. I got ignition done. Everything's ready. I just need a dash pad. All right, let me show you what I did. So I get myself some wire, preferably black, and I make this ground. What I did was I took this is one continuous piece of wire. I stripped it back here about an inch or so, and then I stripped it back here about an inch, and I looped it through that hole. Loop it through that hole, and then solder it. Solder it. Now, I'll cut this piece off as long as I need, and I'll run that to a good ground behind the dash. Look right there. See that? I got a piece of metal there. I scraped it clean and used one of those washers with the pokey washers so it bites into the metal real good. So I know that these two metal plates right here are gonna have a really good ground. So if you've got anything, Chevelle, El Camino, whatever, C10, there's several, any vehicle that's got a plastic dash that everything sits in, they probably have these metal plates behind them. And if you've got an intermittent electrical problem, especially windshield wiper switch, if you've got, intermittent wipers you can't figure out, a cigarette lighter that doesn't work sometimes, it's probably the ground. You probably don't have this metal plate grounded very well. So this is a good upgrade. Even if you don't have a Dakota Digital dash, this is not a bad idea with anything that's got a plastic dash insert. So look for these metal plates, solder a piece of wire to it, give yourself a good ground somewhere. I guarantee you it could save you a lot of headaches if you're pulling your hair out, can't figure out what issues you're having. It's a lot of times the ground. So there you go. There's basically everything you need to do to install a Dakota Digital dash. Now, if you're thinking about it, maybe you're a little scared about the money. Trust me, they're worth the money. And no, I'm not getting paid by Dakota Digital or YouTube or anybody from that matter. I don't have nearly enough followers for that. So I use these products and stuff that you see on this channel because I like them. And Dakota Digital is one of them. So there you go. I really hate not showing the finished product, but I need parts. It's like, hurry up and wait. So I'm doing the best I can. Hopefully this week I'll be able to get the rest of the dash finished and maybe do the I Did It steering column. I'll show you how I do that. Install the I Did It steering column and steering shaft and all that. So, and then I think the firewall will be finished. So then we can do the front clip, and man, it's real close then. I think it's It's gonna be a complete car here real soon, hopefully. So please stay tuned. Hit like, hit subscribe, give me a comment, say hi, give me a thumbs up, hit that bell. I don't know. Any of that stuff would be super awesome and I would appreciate it. Until next time, see ya.